Welcome to the No Mercy Business Coaching Podcast with Emily A Woodruff, the podcast that walks you through managing your own small business through the highs and the lows. We'll talk with small business owners from all over the U.S. and share insights on how to help manage your business without the extra fluff and connect with other women just like you. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me again this week. This is your host, Emily A Woodruff. I am here today with Angela Porta. Angela, do you want to give your introduction?
Yeah, Emily, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you even thinking of me. I am Angela, and I am an amazingly blessed mom and wife. I've been married to my husband for a little over 10 years. We'll be celebrating our 11th anniversary in November. And we have two amazing boys, Dominic and Roman. And we did not name them on purpose. And a lot of people who are Fast and the Furious movie watchers ask that. And we didn't know, we had no idea.
They're funny.
So it sounds like we're really avid Fast and the Furious fans, but we're not. But yeah, so Dominic's 8, he'll be 9 in November, and Roman's 5. And I used to work in occupational therapy. I still do have my license active and things like that, but I haven't done that in quite some time. I am very blessed to be able to be a stay-at-home mom and entrepreneur. I'm an affiliate marketer, which basically means I share products that I love online. And I think the biggest thing that I enjoy is just interacting with people in general. And that's kind of how I got started. And now it's kind of shifting a little bit, but still in that arena. And yeah, it's just been a wild ride, and it's brought me to, well, probably a little bit more about what we're going to talk about today. So
yeah, which is that you're a Christian author.
I am.
So
I love Jesus. I love Jesus. And yes, I just recently published a book called it's a play on words. It's the I'm Possible Project rather than Impossible. And I just published this year. I published my ebook in April of 2022. And just literally maybe like 2 weeks ago, received my first paperback. So it's been kind of a wild ride. It's been crazy, but it's all been a blessing and all been amazing.
So what is, just high level, what is your book about?
Yes, high level. So I feel like this book has been God ordained for sure. I feel like I was his vessel to write his message in my way. So I feel like in general, like I can't take credit for the book because it's not me, if that makes sense. It was through me. So, but yeah, it really just shares a little bit about me and my story from when I was a little girl into like some really big pivotal had, how it affected me negatively, how I overcame that, how I'm still working on overcoming, because that is a journey all of the time. I feel like we will never arrive, but I talk about my story and how there's hope for me, there's hope for anyone who's reading the words, and how, like, practical tips of how you can actually start breaking down what you need to do to help you achieve your goals, whatever goals they may be, personal, professional.
That's great. I'm super excited for it.
That's as high level as I can go because I'm super detailed. So I think that's probably.
That's okay. It's good. I'm super excited for it. It's in my cart right now.
I'm so excited for you to read it. I hope it's a blessing for you.
Yeah. So how did you decide that you were going to publish your first book? Like what led you there?
So I do believe it was God ordained, like I said, but the initial initial seed that got put into my head. And I am not, like telling you to go and buy a million other people's books, but I will tell you that Girl Wash Your Face from Rachel Hollis really did impact me a lot. Like it was a very impactful book for the time that I was at in my life. And she was talking about being an author and suggesting that may be something that the reader might want to do as well. And I had never thought about it up until that point. And it was in my head. And at that time in our life, I have just a little bit of a backstory about me. I have a very much, and I talk about this in the book, but I'm very much a person who's come from an achieving mindset. I'm a recovering perfectionist, always striving to be perfect, which is not possible. But that's been a whole lifetime of unlearning that. And long story short, because of my focus on achievement, that really impacted my marriage, not always in a good way. And when I brought up the possible idea of like, hey, I don't know, maybe I am supposed to write a book or something to my husband. He's my number one fan through and through. And he said something that I don't think he realized the negative impact it had on me, but he's like, do you think that's another thing you're supposed to do? And that really hit me. And I think it's a lesson, not just for me, but for anybody, that we can completely put the possibility of a dream that God put on our heart. He put that there for a reason. Mm-hmm. That was totally him putting that on my heart. I wasn't overthinking it or anything, but because I didn't necessarily believe in myself or believe in my worth, that comment, although it was an honest comment that my husband made, sure. And he was only trying to protect our family, mm-hmm. and not lose more time with me, because I very much was sacrificing time with my family at that point in my life. And it kind of discouraged me. And my subconscious brain was like, you're not an author. You won't be an author. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so I never thought about it again. And I read that book. To be honest, I don't know how long ago I read it. It was probably within the year that it came out. So whatever that was. And I didn't think about it again until I started going to church. I've always gone to church. I am Catholic, but I've had a struggle with religion and all of the things. I think we all probably can have some sort of testimony to that. And I was going to church, and God spoke to me, and he was like, you need to write. And so I started carving out time to go to church with a journal that my mom gave me. And she didn't know that I felt like I was supposed to write. And she's like, you really should take this with you when you go to church. The particular time I was going to church was called adoration, but it was during, like, all focused on Jesus. And whenever I would go, the words would just pour out of me. Like, they just poured. I had no idea what they were. At that point, it was just very therapeutic for me. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry if that volume was on here. It was very therapeutic for me, but I started writing, and then I got distracted. So long story short, I probably wrote about 1,000 words that I didn't know how they were going to all come together or what was going to happen, back in, like, right before COVID, probably like 4 to 6 months before COVID. And then come January of this year, I started writing. And the biggest reason why I started writing is because I got distracted. We moved, and all good things, but we moved. And once we got settled into our home and stuff, I started feeling lost. I started feeling not good enough. I felt stuck. I felt like I wasn't progressing the way I wanted to with things in my business, in my personal life, all of the things. And I was introduced to a Christian group coaching company. And I was just like, this is it. This is what I need. And I was feeling pulled all the time. And those who are believers know that pull. Like, you can push it aside and pretend it's something else, but you know what it is. Like, yeah. And usually it makes you uncomfortable. And usually it puts you in fear because you're like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But you just know. And so I was just like, when I feel like something, and that's changed me, when I feel like that little voice is telling me to do something, like I know that it's God prompting me in some way, shape, or form. And so he did. And I didn't know where that was going to lead me, but it led me to this company, had a whole like training on becoming an author.
Oh, wow.
And God was like, this is it. You need to listen. And I was like, holy crap. So I literally had 1,000 words that I had abandoned. Up, like the last time I had written was before we moved in May of 2022. Like or 2021, excuse me. I had abandoned it. And January 2022, I started writing, and I told my husband, I was like, hey, and I know, we'll talk a little bit about this too, but I was like, hey, I don't know what this means, but I feel like I'm supposed to finally write this book. And he's like, okay, tell me what support you need and how I can help you with it. And I carved out time and started writing, and I finished writing the book at the beginning of April. And it got published on the 27th of April this year. It was insane. And it wasn't me. It was God, and God moves fast when we're obedient. And that is really what I feel like happened. And I was passionate, and I was excited, and it was just all amazing. And I had never had that full-fledged experience of trusting God before until I did that. And it was amazing and beautiful. So it was a huge blessing. I know that was a lot, but I just really wanted to like show like the doubt and like how like it transformed. It was so crazy. It really was.
It's important. It's the story of how you got there. And that's incredibly important. And just being able to share God's goodness and to share how he saw you through, even if you and your humanness don't want to do all the things right away, I think we can all relate to that.
Most definitely.
That's so cool. It's been really fun to watch your journey. Like when you were writing it, you were posting, little statuses about chaotic days and long nights of writing and stuff like that. And it's fun to watch. So.
And that scared me when I was posting on social media, because that is accountability. Yeah. Like when you are sharing something that you're working toward, and you don't know the outcome. Like you're anticipating the outcome, but you don't know it. And you just have to go out on faith. And that was the faith. And I was just like, of course, immediately, like you start getting flooded with like all of the negative things. Like, you're not going to do this. Like, I can't believe you're posting about this. Like, and that isn't of God. That's all fear. And, it can be a whole host of things, but especially, Satan doesn't want us to do God's work. So
we're preaching today.
I I joke around, but I was like, I'm not trying to be preachy, but I am.
No, it's good. It's good. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Cool. So, do you plan on writing any more books?
So I didn't know what I was going to do, and I do have plans. I definitely do have plans for another book. I haven't started writing it or anything like that, but it would kind of build off of the I'm Possible project. More of a focus on like my journey with being a perfectionist and overcoming that, I think will probably be the main focus of it. Okay. Because when I started writing this book, I had no idea what it was going to be about. I just wrote. And that was good because it helped me to not overthink things. But if I could do it all over again with a new book, I'm definitely going to like plan before I start writing the outline, because that will help tremendously. Because that was probably the biggest challenge I had to overcome with making the book, is that I had to figure out how it all pieced together, because it was all in themes and chunks and it was all over. So that was the biggest thing that I think I had to overcome with that. But yeah, I think I'll work on that. I don't know when. I am trying to also just kind of be in the moment with this book and learn lessons that I know God will will give me along the way too.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So what do you think, you shared about your biggest challenge with your book, but what do you think your biggest challenge as a female Christian author is?
So I'm so glad, Emily, that we kind of talked about this beforehand, because I had to think about this and really like dive deep. And I talk about doing this in the book. Thinking is so important for us as humans to do. And our society is created for us not to think. It is full of distractions. It's full of being busy. It's full of, let's go from one thing to the other thing to the next thing. When do we have time to think? We don't, because usually by the end of the day, we're exhausted from doing all of the busy, that we don't have time to really just sit and reflect unless we make it. And it's not that we don't have it. Like I said, I used to always say, I need to be better at managing my time. I need to be better at managing my time. I can't manage time. Everyone has the same amount of time. I have to manage myself in the time. Yep. And that is like the life lesson that I'm starting to learn. And so I would think that the biggest challenge that I have had as a Christian author, I was very torn, and I went through a process when this was happening as well, but I was very torn on how much I wanted to promote God on this. And not because I didn't want to share him. I wanted to share him. Like I wanted God shared in my story and in my book. But we touched on this earlier, a lot of people have some sort of an interaction or experience that is negative with Christianity. Yeah. And it's not Christianity is bad. It's and not even bad's not a great word, but people are human, and usually the negative experiences that we have are with people, not the principles of Christianity, because that is good. You know, yep. God is good, Jesus is perfect, and we can't, that's not the problem. The problem is people, because we are human and our human nature. So I struggled because I so wanted to share God, but I didn't want God to be the focus, because I wanted people to pick up the book for those who have shunned God because of the negative experiences that they've had with people. Yeah. And so that's why it wasn't on the cover. And I struggled with that, because I was like, I don't want to hide Jesus. Like, I don't want to hide it. But I don't think well, anyone who reads it knows that I didn't hide him. Yeah. But I talk about my experience and stuff. And so I think that was a big piece as far as a challenge. And I think another piece is that I had to get okay with talking about Jesus in a non-traditional way. Sure. Because I always felt like if I wasn't traditional with how I talked about him, that I wasn't doing it right. And there is no right or wrong way to talk about Jesus. And I think that's really, that's powerful, right? That's Jesus talking right now. Yeah. That wasn't me. But there's no right or wrong, because we are all created in his image, and we all are unique. We're all the same, but we're not. Like, we're all like, we come from the same Father, but we are all unique. And so my experience is going to be completely different than your experience, or my husband's experience, or my kids' experience. And so we shouldn't be ashamed of talking about our true experience with that. Right. You know, and so I had to be okay with the fact that just because I'm Christian, just because I'm Catholic, just because I believe in Jesus, doesn't mean I can't be a social media influencer. Right. Jesus needs to be there too. Jesus needs to be on Facebook. Jesus needs to be on YouTube. He needs to be on Instagram. He needs to be there because we're there. His people that he wants to connect with so much are there too. And so I used to struggle with that piece. Like, am I doing the right thing because I'm on these worldly things, so to speak, that would be traditionally discussed? Yes, I am. I know I'm doing the right thing for me, because God gave me that gift to touch people. And this has been my journey all along the way of figuring that out. And so that has been a challenge for sure.
No, that's so great. And I just want to encourage you in that area, that we're called to go to the places that non-Christians are. If we only go to church on Sundays and we only go to Bible studies, we'll never ever have the opportunity to talk with somebody who's not a Christian. And
Amen.
not even for us to be the person that leads them to Christ, but for them to have an example of Christ, or to just see how somebody who loves and follows Christ lives. To be
Absolutely.
able to make that connection or to be able to make that influence is so important, and it's so much bigger than us, and our every single day interactions can be that for somebody, you know.
It so is. And that is why I wanted to not have him posted here,
Yeah.
like not his picture necessarily, but I wanted it to be a human.
Yeah.
And then they could feel the love through my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more about my life and feeling his love and forgiveness. But I also really tried to incorporate that it's not just for me, it's for everyone. And so I had a lot of epiphany and therapy moments during my book reading process.
No, it's great. It's great.
It was good.
So what does for you as a Christian, what does spending time with God look like for you, and how do you find that time?
So, as a recovering or overcoming perfectionist, I have an expectation of what I was told when I was younger of what that should look like. And so I'm constantly fighting that battle because what happens, I'm the type of person who goes from like either 0 or 100. Like there's really no in between. And not that there can't be, but I have to be aware of how I have been programmed for these past 37 years of my life.
Yeah.
And I feel like my time with God is honestly just very evolving and changing. And I don't have the right, it's not right. It's not perfect. It's not a recipe that I follow all of the time, because I am working through that piece. But a lot of what I do, like I might read a book. I might listen to a podcast. I love, there's a podcast that I listen to called Bible in a Year that's really, really amazing. I think it's from Father Mike Schmitz that he dives deep on it, and it's really, really good. But like worship music, the Bible, going for a walk, prayer time, silence. Silence is so big. That's when he can talk to me, like when I try to be quiet. And usually when like silence is scary because you are in your thoughts.
Yep.
And that's scary, especially if you have a lot of unresolved conflict in your thoughts.
Yeah.
That you need healing from, So, and when I say you, I mean me also.
Right.
So I feel like I try to plan time, but I am working through being better at scheduling my time. And so that's not, like I said, nothing's perfect. It never will be. And so I have to change my expectation. And I really try to keep him present throughout my day, the entire day. And I really try to focus on gratitude and thanking him for like the little moments. Like today I took my kids to the library, and I don't ever want to take for granted any of it. Like I used to work in an occupational therapy job, and I would be gone for 8 to 10 hours a day. I never would have been taking my kids to the library. They would have been closed, so just being aware and grateful for what I have, and just thanking God for that. I try to be more aware throughout my day, and that has helped me to be more in tune with my relationship with him.
That's great. So do you have any advice for somebody who might just be starting out as an author? I know that you're new to the game too, but somebody who might just be feeling that call on their life.
So I feel like if you have that vision, or you have even just the smallest seed, like you need to run with it. Don't discount it. Don't think you're not able or worthy to do any of that, because you absolutely 1,000,000% are. And God put that on your heart for a reason. I believe that even if you don't have a strong relationship with God, I believe that he isn't going to not, he cares about all of us, regardless of our relationship with him. And so I feel like he does take different opportunities to reach us in some way, especially putting big visions and goals and aspirations on our hearts. So I would just encourage you to write. One thing, like I mentioned briefly before, is that I would at least outline your thoughts. But if you feel overwhelmed by outlining them, I would literally just write. Just write. It's okay. You can outline later if you have to, but if you feel like words are pouring, just let them. And you don't have to look for a publisher or anything like that. I actually went through a program called KDP, or Kindle Direct Publishing. And basically I was able to publish this entire paperback option on Amazon. I did it all, and it was very overwhelming, but I figured it out as I went. I do have a YouTube channel, and we can talk about that too, but I'm going to be putting up a video about kind of my process with going through and the things that I did, because I do want it to be a resource for people who are aspiring to do that, because I know a lot of people feel called through the written word, because sometimes it's just easier to talk about things when you write.
Yeah.
I'm a writer. I work harder to communicate verbally and I really have to think through things, but writing is easier for me. And so, yeah, you can do the whole process. You don't have to pay an arm and a leg to do it. I mean, ultimately, you can hire people out to do different things like the cover and stuff like that, but I did it. I did all of it. I used Grammarly. I'd never even heard of Grammarly before. I used Grammarly. I have learned so much along the way. So I would just encourage you to start writing, and don't overthink the process. The pieces will fall into place. You just have to do the work to write, and then you can be resourceful and figure it out along the way, and don't get caught up in how it's going to get done. Just do it.
That's great. Is there anything additional that you want our listeners to know about you and your book, or where you're headed, anything like that?
Yeah, so this is still very new. It's definitely in its infancy, but when I started working with this Christian life coaching program, it's more of a business coaching program, but they talked about coaching, and I love everything they talked about. I loved. So this was also a new epiphany for me, that I do feel called to start a coaching business also, as far as personal and life coaching. And it's kind of come full circle. I love God and how he works. He is the divine author. It's just so cool to see, obviously, hindsight is 2020. I had no idea what was happening when it was happening, but now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. How everything came to be, because you can find me on social media. My brand, so to speak, is called the Angela Raylan Makeover. And I started the makeover piece a long time ago because I was trying to find myself and invest more into my self-care with hair and makeup. And that's really where it started. Because I was a young mom and I wasn't doing anything for myself. And that's where it started, but it's become so much more. And I love it, because now my focus is the external and the internal makeover. And so I am going to be launching, I'm still working on the details, but I am going to be launching my coaching business here very soon. And I do have a website. It's www.mymakeovercoach.com. So I'm going to be working on that quite a bit. And I'm still going to be doing the things that I've been doing all along, because I find value and impact both to myself and to others through doing that. But this is going to be a different piece of it. And I'm really excited about it. So and then you can find me basically on any social media platform under the Angela Raylan Makeover. I love my YouTube channel. That's something I'm working on growing. I have an Instagram and Facebook that you can find me under that. And then on TikTok, it's just my name, Angela Porta, Porta.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time, and it's just exciting to hear all the fun things going on in your life.
Well, thank you so much, Emily. I truly appreciate you reaching out and stuff. It's been an awesome time. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for listening to the No Mercy Business Coaching and Consulting Podcast with Emily A Woodruff. We specialize in branding and design for women, by women.